First, you want to install the hard stop and use the set screw to, and there's a hole in the bottom of the T-tube that will keep it from rotating around. After you feed the Python through the tube, there'll be the core, power, CAN, and USB cables that will exit the bottom opening. The two video cables and the ground cable will come through the top opening. You want to fold those back down inside the opening to make them flat for sliding the casting onto the T-tube. And before sliding on the casting, you'll also want to feed the ground strap for the console through the bottom opening and out the top opening. With that in there, you will screw the ground strap from the Python and the ground strap to the console onto the lug in the bottom of the T-tube. And again, make sure the VGA cables are flat. And you assemble the castings together, making sure the tension screws are in the same direction towards the back, and you slide the spacer between the two pieces and slide it onto the T-tube, making sure that the cables exiting the lower opening fit into the slot. And you secure the tear-shaped piece onto the end with the flathead screws. And then you install the anti-rotate washer with the nubs towards the inside, as they will lock onto the tear-shaped spacer. And then after the anti-rotation washer is on, you install the clamping knob. Pull the video cables out the top opening and install the anti-rotate dowel and secure with the M5 screw. Verify that none of the cables are pinched inside of the tube, and then install the console onto the lower casting. There's a lip along the top edge that you'll need to make sure is engaged. Next step is to install the main display. There are locator pins that the display sits on top of, and then you can secure with the M8 screws. These should be tightened to torque specs. You'll need to clear a path inside of the tube for the USB camera to be fed through. It's a tight fit, but you need to also feed through the auxiliary screen, power, and USB connector, as well as the power and USB touchscreen for the main display. After these cables are fed through, you can install the tension bolt onto the upper casting. This will keep the display from banging to the front or the rear. You route the DC power cable underneath the tab between the console top, and you'll also route the core cable under this tab as well. This needs to be done to have enough clearance for the rear cover. The rest of the cables you'll need to keep as flat as possible near the opening, again for clearance for the rear cover. Connect each of the cables to their designated spots. They should all be keyed as far as which ones will go into which receptacle. Last part is you'll need to install the 10-pin to 12-pin adapter onto the core connector. Be sure to line up the beveled corners on the connectors. They should connect easily and latch into place. Then the 12-pin connector goes onto the console node. If you need to remove this, be sure to disengage the locks fully or damage will be caused. And then fold the cable over out of the way for the rear panel installation. The ground strap needs to be connected to the middle screw on the right. When installing the remote jog, the first thing you want to do is just set it into the cradle to keep it from being damaged, and then insert the strain relief into the slot in the console with the rounded edge forward so that the flat edge is along the bottom opening. And then route your cable inside of the frame of the console and secure to the tie mount strips. Route the cable underneath the bundle of wires to keep the wire bundle as flat as possible, and then you'll plug it into J30 on the console board. Before installing the labels, you need to remove the override and the selector knobs, and then select the proper overlay labels for the installation. First, you need to remove the protective film on the back that's covering the adhesive. This smallest label goes above the keys on the remote jog. There's a little indentation to help with alignment. Set it into the indentation and then press into place. After selecting the proper remote jog label, again remove the protective film on the back and place it into position. Once positioned, start in the center of the label, working your way outward to press the adhesive into place and to eliminate bubbles underneath the label. Make sure to go to around all the keys to ensure proper adhesion. Again, select the proper label for the console and remove the protective film from the rear. As with the other pieces, the console has an indentation to help with alignment of the label around the keys and encoders. Place the label carefully so that it does not get stuck in the wrong orientation, and check the alignment before starting in the center of the label and working your way out between the keys. Be sure to spend proper attention at the ends of the key rows around the plastic features to make sure the label is press down fully. And again, work out any air bubbles underneath the label. With the labels installed, you need to reinstall the knobs. And you'll notice a flat spot on the shafts, and this is where the set screw will press against to secure the knob. The console overrides have a push button function, so extra clearance is needed underneath the knobs. Place a 2mm wrench under the edge before as you install the knobs to allow for the clearance. Once in place, secure the set screw. Afterwards, remove the 2mm wrench and check for proper push button functionality and proper turning without binding. On the remote jog, again, the axis selector will have a flat spot for the set screw. If it's a premium or wireless remote, the override will require the 2mm clearance for the push button function. So again, use the 2mm wrench under the edge to allow for the proper clearance. If it's a basic model, it will have a pot and will not need the extra clearance. And align the set screw with the flat area on the post and tighten to secure. After installing the labels, you need to install the override guard. With the bend in the downward position, place the override guard into the holes in the front of the console and secure with Phillips screws that are included in the back. The screw holes are located along the top corners of the console board. After getting all the harnesses connected, you'll need to secure them with tie wraps to make sure that there's enough room for the rear cover installation. Keeping them in smaller bundles of 2 or 3 will allow you to keep the cables flatter. You want to also keep them as high in the rear of the console as possible for clearance for the keyboard box. Take advantage of the tie wrap mounts, and again, make sure the cables as they enter through the top right are as flat as you can make them. There's a molded tab in the casting that you can use to tie the cables down to pull them tighter. Next step is to install the auxiliary screen. You'll first want to install the VGA cable onto the panel mount on the rear of the main display. remove the panel mount screws and mount the harness. Then attach the main VGA and the power and touchscreen adapters or harnesses onto the main display. And then as you're mounting the auxiliary screen, there are tabs to help locate the hinge. Once it's in place, secure it with the 4 M6 screws and tighten to torque specs. Then need to connect the harnesses for power and the touchscreen and USB. And once these are connected, place the auxiliary screen in the closed position to check that there isn't any extra tension on the cables, and also to check the tension on the hinges themselves to make sure that the auxiliary screen will stay in position during use. Replace the back cover on the main display. The top edge will snap into place, and then there are 4 low-profile M4 by 8 screws to hold the cover into position. Then you can install the friction screw onto the lower casting. Install the retaining ring on the clamp knob and the decorative cap. Once this is on, you plug the QWERTY keyboard into the remaining USB connector, and the rear cover will tilt into place. The top right corner will be fairly tight with all the cables, and extra pressure may be needed on the keyboard rail to press it into position to engage the screws. When installing the shelf option, it'll be installed with 3 included bolts. It's self-aligning in the pocket molded into the rear cover. This shelf will also need to be removed if the rear cover should need to be removed at any point in the future. When installing the tool holder option, it will be secured with 4mm by 12 socket head screws installed along the left-hand side on the rear of the console. The thicker end of the tool holder is the bottom edge. Once installed, the tool holder can be accessed with a finger pocket along the edge to pull the tool holder out and into position to be used. When not in use, it can be folded back up to protect it from damage. The rear connections are the power color-coded red and black for 24 volts and ground, and the TB3 connections are in numerical order from 1 to 12.